and happy Tuesday, 10 at 10. I am your host, Richard Charpentier, and you know the format. We get questions that are being sent to Bakerpedias, and every Tuesday we take a segment for 10 minutes where we try to answer as many questions as we can put in within 10 minutes. So without any further ado, let's get started. So the first question we received, somebody asking, I'm working in a bakery manufacturing. I have a problem with high yeast count on environmental monitoring after cleaning process. Before cleaning, yeast counts are zero. So I'm going to try my best to answer the question because you have a problem with high yeast, and before you cleaning, the yeast counts are zero, and it seems that as you're cleaning, the yeast counts are going up. I've seen that happen, and it was when, and I don't know if it's a question because the way it's formulated, it's a little different. Could be due to the fact that if you're using rags to clean, and if the rags are not clean, properly clean, and they're sitting in water and everything, remember, you might have a high load or concentration of bacteria in what you're using to clean the surfaces. So as you're doing that, then you're going to basically spread it around. So in terms of good sanitation programs, when you're trying to control, mold and yeast, which are in the air, so the best things is understanding the type of practices to use in order to sanitize properly. Do you have any fans, blowing air on packaging and things? So basically you're moving, you think you're cleaning a surface, but you're pushing things to a different area by having fans. You're using rags that are not clean, the type of sanitizer you're using, the type of cleaning products, are you just using water, are you putting vinegar, etc., etc. So that's my recommendation to you. Hopefully it helps, but I'm not sure why you get low count and then after and before you start cleaning your counts is zero, but then as you clean it goes higher up. So good luck on that. Next question. Hi, I'm trying to make brownies with a shelf life of 12 months, packaged in airtight bags. Would eggs of butter spoil if used? I've been looking for egg replacement just in case, and someone told me to use powdered flax with water. Would this work? So you have two questions. The first one, could you get a shelf life of 12 months in a brownie? Yes. Now you're talking about, you said airtight packaging. Airtight packaging doesn't mean you have oxygen within your packaging, because once you're using, fresh butter or eggs, you're trying to control oxidation, oxidative rancidity. And as it says, oxidation comes from oxygen. So if you can control the oxygen, if you say it's airtight, but how much oxygen is within your product, fresh were the ingredients you were using. And do you do, is your formulation properly balanced in terms of the water activity of your product and the pH to create a stable, clean product, a shelf-stable product for 10 months? That's the first thing that I would do, because not knowing, and if with your packaging, you have to understand the MVTR, the moisture vapor transfer rate, which is MVTR, which is basically the specification of your of the packaging, and certain packaging allows you to do certain things. So not, you'll need to check with your packaging or material vendor. And the second thing, can you replace eggs with flax? Yes, you could, and flax or other ingredients, but I recommend you use it because as you replace the eggs with flax, it's going to give a different flavor, and based on the particle size of the flax, you might get a grainy texture. So please do check and verify. That's what product development is all about. Don't just change and think it's okay. You're going to have to validate it for your shelf life, as based on the flax, they contain more fat and more chances of rancidity. So just things to know as you move forward. Next question. Can we leave the Autolyse mix with water and flour only for 5-6 hours in the freezer or refrigerator. I'm not FRIZ, so a freezer. I'm not sure what, but let's assume it's a refrigerator. So first of all, for those who are not aware, Autolyse system is a system where you take your flour, your water, and mix it together as if you were to make a bread, and let it sit there for 45 minutes to 60 minutes. It's an old system that has been used heavily in artisan bakeries around the world, especially in France, where it was allowing for proper hydration and also for enzyme activities within your flour, and usually was used for weaker flour, but it's used heavily in the US to create sort of the artisan look. So now if you're using that and you're placing it in a refrigerator, why not? Try it. See what you get. It doesn't mean there is one right or one wrong. The bottom line is, can you make a good quality bread after you do it for 5 to 6 hours in a refrigerator? If it's in a freezer, as it says frizz, you might get the dough too cold to work again. So I don't know if it's recommended. But again, part of product development of trying is about trying and validating. And if it works and it makes a great product, that's what happens. Then you discover a new technique. There's no technique that is set to be exactly one way. But the only fear as you're extending the Autolyse system for longer is you might be weakening your system a bit, but check it, not knowing, the type of wheat flour you're using and protein, etc. So it's difficult to say. All right, next question. If using dough relaxers, oxidizing agents, would this reduce the final bake volume of a croissant? Well, just for clarification, so if we have oxidizing and reducing agents, and if you want to learn more, please go to Bakerpedia page. I know Dr. Lynn Carson has put a lot of great articles on the topic, so there's a lot of information in terms of usage rate, which one to use and which one not to use, etc. So please, if you have not, go check the Bakerpedia page. Here, if you're trying to relax the dough, you're probably referring more to a reducing agent and not an oxidizing agent. Oxidizing agents are basically to increase the gluten strength and elasticity. As a reducing agent, it's sort of doing the opposite. It does more than that, but sort of the opposite. It weakens the dough a little bit, and it allows for short-term mix time. But both of those things are used heavily in commercial bakeries, where time is of the essence. So if you're using, and again it says oxidizing agent, it might be a reducing agent, but if you're using an oxidizing agent and you reduce your volume, then it's a reducing agent. I think the key would be to have a reducing agent to basically help you with the lamination process, and technically based on how much you're using, the type of reducing or oxidizing agent you're using, and the temperature of the dough and the environment in which you process will and might affect your problems on the volume of your croissant. So if you're losing volume, that's not a good thing. You're trying to increase volume. And that's something, if you're interested, remember, you can hire consultants for 30 minutes to discuss your subject. It's on the LinkedIn the reference. You can click and hire a consultant, which is a great thing for those who have quick questions or want me or someone else to review your case one-on-one. Now, moving on to the last question. I'm trying to produce croissants using a low protein 9.6% protein flour with a relatively high P&L ratio of 1.02. I'm having issues with my croissants tearing in the proofing process. I have no issue in the makeup. I also add dough oxidizing agents and extra gluten on my current recipe. Should I look at doing the following? Reduce the level of gluten and oxidizing agent? Yes. If you're tearing, that means you have too much strength and the yeast is pushing through. I would eliminate that. Use reducing agent. No, don't use reducing agent increase the mix time to allow to the point where I'll overmix to break down the gluten structure to make the dough more extensible. Here's what I would do. Go back to the basis. Eliminate as much as you can. Go back to a standard or control and make a good croissant. And I don't know your equipment and how your process, how many croissants per minute you're running. So if it's an issue, remember when you always start with what are the two main ingredients? Flour and water. So go check that as your flour change. Have you been able to make croissants without any problems before? You know, those are the questions I always ask the bakers that I'm working with. Is the problem new? When did the problem start? When did you start seeing issues? And then you go back, you have to be doing your own detective's work in order to understand what's going on. You know, coming here and say, do this and do that without understanding the history of it. If you've never made a croissant before and you're trying to do it and it's brand new and you're playing with the ingredients, then start reducing. If you see you're tearing, that means, you know, your gluten is one, either not developed well enough, overdeveloped, or over oxidized, or you have things, or you're too much yeast. So you have things, or your proof, if it's cracking, is your temperature in your proof box correct? Is your relative humidity in your proof box correct? Is the dough temperature correct, et cetera, et cetera? There's a multitude of questions that can be asked around and how to fix it. But I'll be glad to, again, on Bakerpedia page, on if you click on resources, you'll find consultant help. That's something I could help you out. So on that note, I wish you a happy Tuesday to all of you and happy baking, and I will see you next week. Take care.